And so you need to know that that's where I come from, that I do everything in God's name and only for the highest best. And would you allow me to put my hands on your back? Because my hands turned on the minute the man said, are you going to work with him? And so Ray said yes. I went over to him, maybe 5 minutes, I don't know, no more than 10, right on his lower back. And as soon as I was finished, I was kind of dizzy, so it took me a minute to stand up. He jumped up and ran out the door. And
No
somebody
way.
jumped up and ran out after him, and I thought, oh my God, I tried. Well, it turns out later, long story short, Ray ended up coming to my house about 6 weeks later, knocking on the front door. Now, number one, he didn't know where I lived, so I know he got the address from the person that put the gathering together. And he's pulling up with his pickup truck and a trailer that had a riding lawnmower on the back, and this from a guy who was in so much pain he couldn't even sit up straight.
Welcome to The Beautiful Side of Grief, where today's guest, Julia Marie, was literally just like you and me until she had an STE. Now, what is an STE? Well, that's a spiritual transforming event. She went from having a BA in psychology, a law degree, being in the military, and in between having some unusual job opportunities to finally finding her niche for 33 plus years as an intuitive consultant and spiritual teacher. In addition to this, she's qualified in mediumship, past life regression work, the quantum healing hypnosis technique, which she did through spiritual guru Dolores Cannon. Plus, she has developed her own restorative energy technique, RET, which is a 5D transdimensional energy healing technique. So there you go. I bet you didn't know that. She's also released her first book that she has fully authored in November of 2023. And this is Signals from My Soul, a spiritual memoir of awakening. Oh, and like me, she is also a podcast host of the Evolving Humans podcast. So, wow, there's a lot to unpack there, and probably not enough time in the hour that we have together. But I thought what we would do was explore what the events were that led her on this path, connecting with our loved ones, how we can do that, what holds us back from connecting with them, and can we easily bridge both worlds? I don't know about you, but I'm very excited to have you here as part of this conversation with Julia Marie. So a very warm welcome to you, Julia.
Well, thank you so much for having me. There's nothing I enjoy more than talking spirit with anybody who's open to listening to what happened for me.
Oh, for me as well. I just love exploring this. The more I get into it, the more I just want to know more. But I thought before we get into all of that, the first question I would love to ask you is, what was your most unusual job and why?
Oh, I had a couple of them.
You did. When I was reading your website, yes.
Well, I didn't even talk about working in the fields of California. So it's a toss-up between driving a tomato harvester or fixing large airplanes. So I'm going to go with the aircraft maintenance because I was part of a mission and working on the aircraft to make sure that it could fly safely. There was a whole team kind of energy about the whole thing. So I'm gonna opt for being a good team member and being in aircraft maintenance.
I know, because that's a far cry from, psychology and a law degree and all of that, then going
Yes.
into plane maintenance. And that's what made me smile. And I went, whoa.
But it was the aircraft maintenance that allowed me the opportunity to get both the psychology degree and the law degree. So I'm grateful because that was what I did when I was in the military.
Oh, wonderful. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing the way those doors open up for us when we allow them to. So that's a really super story. But I thought we'd also get underway by discussing what you experienced with the loss of your brother at a young age and how that impacted you.
Looking back, I can see that his passing was probably the very beginning of my understanding, although at the time that happened, I was still very unconscious. And I would say that the understanding that I came to have was twofold. One, the last encounter I had with him, something, again, I'm not aware that it's spirit telling me to stop, don't rush out of the house, because I was already living on my own. He was still in the house with the rest of the family. I stopped by the house to pick up some mail that had gone there, and instead of rushing back out, something told me to stop. And so we just had this lovely conversation. He's folding his newspapers for his newspaper route.
Mm-hmm.
And then off I went out the door, not knowing that was the last conversation I was going to have with him. So the first lesson that I learned was never to leave, especially if it's someone that I care about, with a bad feeling or situation, because you never know. The second lesson I learned from his passing. When I went to my house, it was a few, maybe not more than a week and a half after that, when there was a knock on my door and a feeling of dread hit my stomach. I opened the door. My uncle was standing there, and I thought he was there to tell me my father had died, because I could tell by his face something was not right. And he told me it was my brother. Well, I thought it would help me to go and view him during when they had the open casket viewing. And I remember standing over the casket, looking at his remains and not feeling a sense of and not feeling him. So it was more of, okay, so there's a body here, but where's my brother? So I had the beginning understanding or reinforcement of, oh, there really is more to this life than just our physical body. There's something beyond that animates the form. So again, I wasn't conscious. I was sensitive as a child, but because I lived in a family where it was pretty much chaos, I tended to pull in and close down those extra senses just to be able to manage my day.
Yeah, to survive. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very much the same. I went very much into survival mode as a child, when I just felt so different from everybody else, and
Yep.
and everybody dismissed it, and I couldn't be around a lot of chaos and noise, and even to this day, I still don't like being around that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't until I was probably mid-40s before I realized, oh, that's what that is all about. And yes. So tell us how years later you were reading a book, and then your brother connected with you through that book, didn't he? Whilst you were
Yes.
reading it.
Now, I'd already gone through my awakening process by the time I found that book. So
Okay.
I had the spiritually transformative experiences in my early 30s. So this would have been maybe into my early 40s. I was already maybe 10 years following spirit. So I was comfortable with interacting in a different way, using all of my senses, the physical ones and the senses of my soul. I like to call them soul senses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was used to that. And one of my students actually lent me this book by the Psychic Twins. I don't remember the title, but in the book, they had a very short meditation, self-guided meditation. I thought, oh, let me just read it. So I read the self-guided meditation, and it was probably my first conscious medium level experience, because there he was, only instead of being a 15-year-old boy, he was a grown man. And so I quickly, as he started talking to me, I grabbed a piece of paper and wrote what he was saying, and I'm glad I did. I don't have it handy, but he basically said, "It took you long enough. I passed on a chance to reincarnate so that I could work with you as you work with people on the other side." So he's part of the team when I do mediumship stuff. I feel like he probably tells the spirits on the other side the best ways to connect with me and things that interest me or things that are going to get my attention, is my feeling.
Oh, wonderful. And I've heard
Mhm.
about that. I've
Mhm.
heard that there can be, I think it's Suzanne Giesman. So she talks about that, and she had somebody that she was very close to pass. And then that's what they do. They organize everyone and say, okay, if you want the
Mhm.
best
Yep.
communication with Suzanne, this is what you need to do. And
Yeah.
if you want to show her something, these are the signs she recognizes. And yes, yeah, that's pretty cool. What
Mhm.
was what was it that first led to your awakening? Let's go back a few years earlier. What put you on to this whole journey of awakening?
Um, Probably 2 years before it actually happened, so this would have been in the late 1980s. I was still in the military, and I started having a feeling that my uniform didn't fit quite right, like my life didn't fit.
Mm.
And I would say to anybody who's experiencing those kinds of things, you're probably having some sort of awakening experience. You're starting to feel the leading edge of it. And I didn't understand it again at the time. But what happened for me was, over the period of about 18 months, I had spontaneous activation of what I later came to understand was healing energy. My hands turned on when I got around people. That is what has evolved into the RET,
Mhm.
restorative energy technique, that I now attune other people to 3 decades later. But the round red circles, I could see them visibly in the mirror. They showed up where my chakras are, and a red stripe up my back, which I believe was probably a Kundalini activation, but I didn't know at the time that's what it was.
How did you manage that? Because that would have been quite frightening, I imagine,
It
to see
was.
all this and not know
Yeah.
what was happening. So how did you
Mhm.
get guidance and support around that?
Well, what came along with this experience was invisible people showing up in my living room at night, not during the
Mhm.
day, only at night. And so I used my law degree to grill them and ask them questions, and they always responded, and everything they told me always made sense and was consistent over the months. So it was these invisible teachers that taught me what I needed to know and demonstrated to me in the waking world, or the 3D world, that what I was experiencing was real and that it wasn't a mental breakdown or a psychological,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because, back in those days, I mean, it's hard enough now. And I think that we have a
Hmm.
lot more awareness and acceptance of this type of thing today. But back when you were having it, those were days and times where it was very much under the radar. And you probably had to be very careful about who you shared it with and so on. So, like seeing spirits at night. That would have
Well,
been
there
so
were
yeah, share with us how you coped with all of that.
there were no books, there were no teachers, there was no internet for me to Google things. And so I basically, there was a small metaphysical store near where I lived. I would get concepts from these teachers at night, and then I could go to the metaphysical store and a book would fall off the shelf and I would open it and there would be what they were talking about. So Spirit figured out a way to give me validation. I always tell people, ask for whatever your experience is, ask for validation. and it will come. You just need to be open to it. So I had to learn to trust and have faith. And I think those are two things we can only gain through interacting and our experiences.
Those are two big things that are quite difficult. I mean, we say them, to,
Hmm.
but it's actually quite a big leap to move into that space, to trust and to have faith that everything's going to be all right and that it is
Hmm.
as it is supposed to be. But I guess you've got these beautiful beings guiding you. That must have been really, really helpful. When you talk about communicating with spirit, did you see them? Did you hear them? Or do you see them? Do you hear them? And if so, what is seeing and hearing? How would you describe that?
So at the time, in the beginning, I would believe I was more strongly clairvoyant than anything else. So to describe the experience would be like when you read a book, your mind makes pictures as you're reading the words. So that's kind of how it is with clairvoyance. You'll see an image, but it's in your mind's eye. So it would just form there and move like a movie. So I have since moved more to the feeling side, my physical feelings, the sensations that I get in my physical body. I rely more on them now than I did in the beginning. And then the clairvoyance comes as an added bonus, I guess. And every once in a while, I will hear words in my head. So I'm sure that's probably the clairaudience, but it's like someone speaking to me, like I'm taking dictation.
Mm. Yeah, and it's just a knowing, isn't it? It's not
Mm-hmm.
like you and I talking now. I hear
Mm-hmm.
my daughter, and at first, when she first transitioned, I thought, am I making this up? Because it feels like
Mm-hmm.
she's talking to me. It's her language. It sounds like her, but I didn't know how to trust that to begin with. And then I got validation that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was actually her speaking to me.
And that's one of the things that most people that lose loved ones that have that experience, they chalk it up to imagination. But here's what I like to tell people. That frequency that we call imagination is the exact same channel that spirit uses to communicate with us. And so, no, it's not your imagination. It really is real.
That makes so much sense to me because
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about creativity and how people can just create without even knowing how they're creating something or
Exactly.
developing something or coming up with this idea, it just seems to happen. That is what you're talking about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That channel. So, what do you think our loved ones across the veil or in the afterlife want us to know?
I would say first and foremost, it's the love that never dies. The stronger the bond of love you have with your people that are living on the other side of life, when you're here, when you're both here, the stronger the connection is when they pass to the other side. And that they're always here. They don't go anywhere. They stay involved with their families, with their loved ones. They do care. They want to participate in all those important events, and they show up for everything.
That's pretty incredible, isn't it? Because
Mm-hmm.
we think we've lost them, but we haven't at all. They're just here in a different form and one we can't easily see or perhaps tap into. What about if they had no beliefs whatsoever, earthside, about the spiritual world? Does that affect their ability to come through to us?
Personally, in over 10 years, I'm going to say no, it doesn't. Most of the time, if there is a communicator that wants to bring a message, but let's say maybe when they were here didn't believe in that kind of stuff, there are other family members that will show up to facilitate that communication. And often the thing I hear the most is they love it because it's like a long distance phone call, only now they don't have to pay for it. Or they get really excited, like, oh, I still have the opportunity to say things. Some of them will be sheepish and say, well, now I know this is real. Sorry, I scoffed at your belief that you believed in this, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. When people talk to their loved ones, they can actually hear us, can't they?
Oh, yeah. The minute you think, let's say you spy a picture and your heart opens and that bring that person to mind, that person comes into your mind, that person is also present in your space.
Wow. If someone says to you that, that's all well and good, but I never receive signs from my loved one, what would you say to them in response?
I would tell them, just based on personal conversations with so many of them, that they will try in very creative ways, as long as they need to, in all different kinds of ways, to make that connection. And what you can do as a recipient is, number one, allow yourself to grieve, but don't get stuck, because grief is a dense vibration, and that does slow us down, which makes it harder for the signal to come. But the other thing is be open to it happening the way in which they can make it so, and not demand one specific thing. Like, I want a dime next to my car tomorrow morning. Otherwise, I won't believe you. And maybe you get unusual butterflies in the middle of winter or something like that.
So what they're doing is they're coming through with what they are able to manifest for you.
Yes. Yes.
Because it takes a lot of energy to do some of that stuff, doesn't it?
Yes. Some are better with the electricity. Some are better with dream visitations, where you have the dream and you wake up and you go, I just feel like I was just talking to my loved one. Well, yes, you were.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of the dream state that is a place where we meet in the middle. Your guard is down as the receiver or the person here, and they are able to reach us. And then we kind of meet in the middle and have conversation.
Mm-hmm. So if we're shutting ourselves off, what other ways may we be doing that from receiving this information through? We've asked for an example whereby, we've asked for something that they can't deliver, so we don't believe it. So we've probably just shut ourselves off to that. What else can shut ourselves off?
As I said, being really sad.
Yeah.
So that can take some time. But if we allow ourselves not to go through that process, then we get stuck in that dense vibration. Sometimes, like for example, what a person could do to lift themselves up, instead of only focusing on the loss, think about some of the happy times that you had when there was laughter and joy. And what that does is that'll lighten you up. And when that lightens you up, that gives your loved one the opportunity to get a word in.
Oh, yes. And I would 100% validate that, because my daughter never let me be sad too long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can have your 5 minutes of crying and then
Now move on.
you need to snap out of it. And like, she would literally come to me with either a saying or a visual or something like that, and I would find myself laughing. I go, "You're just such a minx. Like, let me just be sad." She's going, "No, you've had your time."
Well, because for the loved ones on the other side, life is for living, not for staying frozen in time. It's for enjoying. It's for experiencing, and we can't if we allow ourselves to get stuck.
Very good point there. Your mission is to help sensitive seekers understand that we're all wired the same and that the teacher lives within each of us. Tell us more about that, because most people would look at you again going, really?
The only difference between me And anybody else that's listening to this podcast is I've been going to the gym for a very, very long time. So I've built those muscles, those circuits, really strong. That's the only difference.
Mm. So
We are all wired the same. What I do, I don't call what I do a gift. It's a skill set that I developed. Everyone has that capacity to some degree or another.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who is listening now, I noticed that on your website, you have some resources that can actually help them tap into their intuition and start building those muscles up. So,
Yes.
share with us what that is about, those resources.
Well, there's a free book that they can get, some intuitive hacks that if they're curious and they want to try. And then whenever there's enough interest, I also teach both intuitive development and mediumship development. And I always recommend that someone get comfortable with how their intuition works before they move into taking on the responsibility of communicating on behalf of another. Now, if you learn how your intuition works, then you can also increase your chances of communicating with your loved ones on your own. I tell people all the time, they don't need me. I'm great for validating that what their experience is real.
Mm. So on that, so they can develop these techniques, it's really key and important too that they just allow themselves to relax and not have too many expectations around
Sure.
yours, isn't
Exactly.
it? It's like trying to have the gift before you've actually done the learning or prepared yourself for it, isn't it?
Well, again, not a gift. It's a skill.
Yes. Skill, yes.
Okay.
I'm correct.
It's a skill set. Yes. So because if I say I have this gift, then I'm implying that I'm somehow better or set apart from others. And no, it's a skill set. We're all wired the same. So I like to tell, especially beginning students, because the thing that happens is the human mind will get all wrapped up in being right or wrong. So I say, approach your intuitive development with this mindset. Get yourself a book that you're going to write in and treat it as collecting data on how your intuition works for you. So you write your hits down or whatever information you want to keep track of, and then you validate it. You watch yourself as I have a thought to go left instead of right. So I'm going to write that down, and then I'm going to pay attention. Was there maybe an accident if I had gone right instead of left? Simple things like that. Keeping track of those is going to empower you and expand your ability to trust again, have faith in the information as it comes to you from the field, because you're receiving data that's in a field that you are already a part of. You just don't realize how much information is coming at you that you are not aware of. So if you intend to be more aware of the signals that you're receiving and you do the data gathering exercise, it's not right or wrong. You're just going to experiment with it. You will find very quickly that the more you pay attention to the universe, the more the universe is going to interact with you.
I remember an incident years ago whereby we needed to sell our home. We were moving to another area. And so I remember just going, I cannot be bothered going through real estate agents. So I just set a date in my head that we would have cash offers in by. And then I just left it, put it out into the ether and just trusted and believed that that would happen. So nothing happened. On the day, 3 cash offers on the day. Nobody knew that is what I had done, except my partner. But,
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going, holy heck, this is incredible. But even then, I didn't quite connect the dots that if I could do it with this, then I could do it with anything. So I was a bit slow on the uptake there.
Well, I would almost put what you did in the manifestation category, and you made a request with a very clear intent. So you made a clear, concise request of the universe. This is what I want. And the universe said, okay, here you go. And you got exactly what you asked for. Now, in my world, is that technically intuition? I'm going to say no, but you have the right idea with putting your request out to the universe and anticipating a response.
Yes, you're right there. Intuition is just that sort of inner guidance system that we have, and it just allows us to make those choices. And we don't always understand why we're making those, but yeah, just trusting what we feel inside of ourselves. And you hear it all the time about people that were supposed to go on a plane trip and then for some unknown reason chose not to, and then that plane crashed, and those types of stories. So it's very well documented and validated out there. What, besides doing journaling, what else can we do to enhance this skill?
All right. So when I was talking about the journal, I was talking about record keeping. Okay. That's for data. Yeah. Now, if you wish to, I tell people all the time, give spirit 15 minutes a day. And if you can't give them 15, give them 5. 5 minutes, same time, same place, same length of time. It's going to be the consistent connection that's going to be the key. And wherever it is that you sit, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning, just sitting quietly with the intention, because intent is everything, of opening up to your higher guidance. Trust and believe they will find a way to respond to that intent. I only ever ask Spirit 2 questions. The first is, what do I need to do next? Because anything beyond that's not important. And if I don't interpret that signal correctly and I run into some obstacles, then my second question is always, what do I need to know? Because obviously I missed something. So even if you wanted to just sit in quiet and ask or contemplate, what do I need to know? And just see what comes to you. Are you getting a feeling in your body? Maybe you get goosebumps, and that would let you know that spirit is present with you. Or maybe you hear a song lyric in your head that reminds you of someone who's passed. Anything. Then you're going to write those things down, and you're going to observe later how those signals actually make sense in your day-to-day life as you go about your day. So being open to receiving any kind of communication would be probably the most important thing you could do.
Very, very, very good advice. So when we are making that connection, what are we actually connecting with?
Well, I would say, first I'll say this. The universe rearranges itself to fit your picture of reality. So you will connect with whatever you are most comfortable with connecting. In other words, if you're into angels, you're probably going to get angels. If you're into ascended masters, you're probably going to have ascended masters. If you're really comfortable with just the guides that are around you, you're probably going to have your guides. The title of my book is called Signals from My Soul, because I believe in the final analysis, everything that we're connecting to as an incarnated human is an aspect of our soul.
And then what we've come, when we've chosen to be here now, we've come with that veil of forgetfulness, haven't we? So we don't remember what our soul actually is. And it's so much bigger than we can even possibly imagine, isn't it? So that is what we're learning as we're here, isn't it?
Yes. And I like to offer this for people to consider. It's something I've only recently come to really understand myself, and that is my part in the process. So my physical body is the avatar through which my soul expresses into this dimension what it is it wants to bring here. So my function, it's almost like if a person is playing a game, they create their avatar when they go into that world. I feel like our physical body is the avatar for this greater aspect of energy that's non-physical that we call soul.
Wow. So we're here playing a game.
We are here being a part of this game.
Yes. That's a good way of looking at it, because then
Exactly.
you don't take things so personally, do you?
Exactly. All you have to do is your part, and that is pay attention to the signals and follow them to the best of your ability, whether you understand them or not, and find out where it leads you. And sometimes you'll be very surprised.
And what we do in games, if we get it wrong the first time, the second time, the third time, the 50th time, we just keep trying again until we get it right.
That's correct. Yep.
This is so good. This is great information. So what about the healing that you do? Because you mentioned very early on in our time together, your first awakening happened with the energy in your hands. Can you just share with us the type of energy healing that you do and the role that that's taken on in your life?
Well, it has evolved just as I have evolved. It started out with the spontaneous activation. When I say they, I mean spirit. I didn't know at the time there were beings that were working with me, but I was shown certain hand positions. So somebody would come and sit in a chair. So I literally did hands-on healing modality. That has now translated into a level 1 practitioner for RET. But over the years, what happened was it went from a hands-on modality with hand positions to just sitting next to the person while they were laying on the table and saying what I was seeing. And the images that are on the website that you spoke about before we started, those came during that phase of development. So I was aware of 7 beings at that time. And there are a couple of images on the website that are a pink field with 7 golden balls inside. And I recognized those as the 7 team members. And it was right after that week that 5 more showed up. So there's 12. They work in a team of 7 and a team of 5. And I don't even need to be in person with the people anymore. Now I do it all online. I just go into a light trance, say what I'm seeing, and sometimes hum. And the reason why I have to make a sound is because they come into this dimension on the carrier wave of my voice. So if the person can hear me, they can access the physical body.
And so what is your team able to do? As far as
I like to be very clear. I am the energy delivery system. I am not the one doing the work. These beings, they're about, I'm going to say between 12 and 14 feet tall. They look like columns of light to me. They just look like white columns of light. And they come with the intention to help. Most of the work they do is physical, but there are some other aspects that they can do, like if people are what is blocking me? There's a certain process that they do that helps with that kind of stuff and past life stuff. But for the most part, it's physical healing. And the first miracle was the restoration of some 3 vertebrae in a man's spine. They've fixed hearts, they've shrunk tumors, they've relieved pain. Somebody's 10-year bout with irritable bowel syndrome went away. And then some people don't experience anything except a sense of peace. Can
As a
I tell
corporate
you
outcome?
why? Yep. Can I tell you why the one gets total healing and the other doesn't? Nope, I can't.
Mm. That is such a good point that you make there, because when Tal introduced me to energy healing to heal my chronic conditions that I'd sort of developed very early in my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
I then learned over time exactly what you were just saying, that I'm a conduit for this energy.
That's correct.
That I'm
Yep.
just, that it's not actually me do it. Like, I am not healing people.
Yep. That's correct.
And once you understand that, that ego doesn't have to come into play at all, that you have access to the skill, and I was going to call it a gift for a moment, but then I realized what you said earlier.
Yes.
But when you develop these skills, then you have access to some incredible abilities that transform your life.
And I did. I will say that in the beginning, when God, because I was raised Catholic, so at the time everything was God. When God gave me the guidance to sell my house and my law practice, and I wasn't to work for anybody but God, I said, well, if you're asking me to sacrifice the life I had planned for myself with this healing stuff, somewhere down the road, I know this is selfish, but I would like to know that I was responsible for delivering a miracle level healing to at least one human being that can be proven. And it took, I'm going to say 15 years, but it actually did happen.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Can you share that story?
Yes, and it's in the book because it was the best one. This man's name was Ray, and he had a really bad, he had degenerative, his discs were chalk. And there was a situation where I was in this group. I didn't understand it was a gathering of healers. I just thought, oh, we're meeting at this person's house and we're having a Sunday afternoon conversation. And then the person that put the gathering together said, oh, are you going to work with Ray? And I said, well, Ray didn't ask me. And for me, permission is very important. So the man that I knew to be Ray had a gray face. I knew he was in pain because I have issues with my lower back, but not to his degree. And so I told him, because I knew, I had a sense he was Christian in his belief system. So I said, Jesus and the 12 disciples are very important to me. And so you need to know that that's where I come from, that I do everything in God's name and only for the highest best. And would you allow me to put my hands on your back? Because my hands turned on the minute the man said, are you going to work with him? And so Ray said yes. I went over to him, maybe 5 minutes, I don't know, no more than 10, right on his lower back. And as soon as I was finished, I was kind of dizzy, so it took me a minute to stand up. He jumped up and ran out the door. And somebody jumped up and ran out after him, and I thought, oh my God, I tried. Well, it turns out later, long story short, Ray ended up coming to my house about 6 weeks later, knocking on the front door. Now, number one, he didn't know where I lived, so I know he got the address from the person that put the gathering together. And he's pulling up with his pickup truck and a trailer that had a riding lawnmower on the back. And this from a guy who was in so much pain he couldn't even sit up straight. And I said, oh my God, I was just going to call you in because we were going to get together about 6 weeks after that first incident. And he said, oh, I just came by to thank you for my healing. And I said, what do you mean? And then he told me the story of how after that happened, the reason he jumped up was the headache he'd had all day immediately went away. And that night, his words, not mine, God came to him because Ray wanted another appointment. And God came to him and said, I sent you your deliverer. Why don't you just accept your healing? So Ray did. So that's where I got the real understanding. I'm just the delivery system. I'm not the one doing the work. So my intent is just to be a clear and perfect channel for whatever is flowing through me to that person. It's up to them what they're going to do with it.
Clear and perfect. That is so beautiful.
Yep.
And I think it's important what you noted about permission, because our desire can be that once we have access to this, is that we just want to go and fix, especially our family members, of this or that or what have you. But, gaining a person's permission is just it is cornerstone of doing anything.
Well, if I could heal everyone, my own child wouldn't be in the state that she's in. She would not have the problems that she has. She would be fine. So, yeah. And so he basically started feeling better after about 2 to 3 weeks. He found that he could stand up straight and carry a cup of coffee without being in a lot of pain. So he went to the doctor. Doctor took x-rays, looked at the x-rays, sent Ray back down for another set of x-rays. And when he came back with the second set of x-rays, doctor said, Ray, what have you been doing? There's no way that you're humanly possible. No way humanly possible, he said, that your back should be repaired. And so Ray told him, well, this woman put her hands on me, and so the rest is basically history. So somewhere in a little town in Arkansas, there's a set of x-rays that prove that spirit can work miracles through humans.
Wow. So, and again, when you mentioned about your daughter, that just goes to show that we each have our own journey here.
Yes.
Don't we? And so
that needs to be respected. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I could just carry on talking to you day in, day out. But what I do highly recommend to anybody listening is that they go onto your website, which is
www.juliamarie.us.
And they can go and check out these amazing photos that you have showing the Ascended Masters working in your team. It's incredible. The imagery just blew me away. I just want to finish off by asking you a couple of questions that I ask everybody.
Okay.
What is the best thing that has happened to you so far today? And I know it's not our tech problems that we had in connecting.
What's the best thing that happened to me in the last 24 hours?
Yes.
I'm going to say a sense that Mother Mary is around me, and I haven't had that before. So I just recently started praying the rosary because I've been compelled to do so, and I can sense more of her energy around me. I would say that's probably the best thing that happened to me today.
How does your energy feel?
Like a nurturing mother.
What is something that you are most grateful for?
My ability to be of service in the ways that Spirit allows me to.
That's beautiful. And when you have moments in your day that are not going well, how do you pivot yourself out of those?
The first thing I do is stop my inner critic from starting to browbeat myself. So that's the first thing I do. I give myself a break, literally and figuratively. Sometimes I walk away from whatever the situation is and, frankly, go out on my back deck. It's a little house in the country, so all I see are trees and the cows in the pasture across the way. And I just breathe in the air for a minute. And whatever the season is, I take that in, ground myself, and then go back at it.
Oh, I could just picture that. That's serene, beautiful, peaceful. Just the perfect setting just to calm you down and recenter and focus. So I'm going to have the links in the episode notes to share with our listeners, Julia, of how they can reach you, how they can get hold of your book, and about all the wonderful things that you've accomplished in your life, plus view those incredible aura images taken from your healing sessions, and also access an incredible bereavement resource. You have one of the most comprehensive bereavement resources that I have seen on your
Thank you.
website. So, Julia, I just cannot thank you enough for you taking the time to share with us. We only just started to get into some of these topics. And like I said earlier, I could just talk and talk and talk and talk to you. But I am very, very grateful for you giving us this understanding of how you found this work and what you've been guided to do, and that amazing RET system that you've founded, developed. And I just wish you all the very best that life can offer you going forward.
Well, you've given me a wonderful opportunity to reach new ears or new minds with my point of view as far as the things that I've learned on my journey. And so for that, I'll be eternally grateful. And I just want to acknowledge that what you're doing with your podcast is bringing hope and healing and maybe some encouragement to other people. And that's a wonderful thing. This world could use more of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. If there's a topic you'd like covered, click on the beautifulsideofgrief@gmail.com link, or go into the beautifulsideofgrief.com website, where you can also leave a review. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button. And if you know of somebody who could benefit from this episode, please share. And until next time, please be kind to you and take good care.